perhaps the biggest thing that I learned is that there's no one way to run a writer's room. Every showrunner runs the writer's room in a different way. The way that they distribute the writing, the way that they meet, meeting once or twice a week or every day or whatever there's so many different ways of doing that, and we'll be talking about that. And there's three particular things that seem to me to be really game-changing. First, the real writer's room includes only writers. Second, the writers are also producers, so they are involved in the casting of the writer's room and of the series. They're involved in the choice of the directors, they are on set, they are in the editing room. Then, third, the writing is changeable till the very end by the writer. Now, you might think all this is self-evident, and it may be in the States and in Canada and in some other countries that understood what the writer's room is about. But in most countries, what is happening now is that people think the secret is that writers are all together in one room, and that there is a showrunner, any kind of showrunner. So series are announced with directors as showrunners. Obviously, the whole idea is not the room, but that there is one writer, and I stress writer, who has the final word and the vision. So in a way, this is, and just to use a controversial term, TV d'auteur, but auteur is in the real sense this time.
I learned good lessons early on in my career by doing some improv comedy, where one could go on a stage and say, oh my God, the sky's falling. And if everybody else says, no, it's not, your scene is ended. But if the other ones say, here's a stick, let's hold it up, you're suddenly creating and building something. And I try to work with people in that kind of a way where people don't block each other, where people amplify others' thoughts and always build a scene, always add to it. I find it to be a very, very positive way of working. I often find that being the showrunner in the room is also, you're trying to incorporate your vision. And I think one of the reasons the writer's room works so well is because there's beautiful shows done in Britain where people are doing a six-pack and they can write it all themselves, but they've got the time to do something like that. The showrunner model and the room model is something that can make the process much faster, because you've got 8 great minds and someone who's the maestro. Feed me, you like that, but more like this. And so you can actually turn these great minds into one overmind that's moving the process faster and making it much bigger and better.
First of all, I do the Bible for the entire series before we start any writing. And so I sort of have it all in my head where I think we're going with the characters. What I then want to do is empower the individual writers and say to them, in the first draft, teach me what I don't know about my show. And in the second draft, I'll teach you what I do know about my show. Because what I find is if you can say to a writer in the first draft, you're completely free. And here's an outline, but listen, I've been doing this 40 years, and I've written 1,000 outlines, and I never have written the script based on the outline. The outline becomes useless almost the minute you actually start writing the script. So I always say to the writers, just shock me, surprise me, make me laugh, make me cry, because the shows I tend to do, the last thing I want is for there to be one voice. I want there to be one vision, but I don't want there to be one voice, because I think the kinds of shows that I do, it should be a cacophony of sounds, of lives, of points of view. And when you have writers on staff and freelance writers, you get a variety of voices. And we have a wonderful setup in New York, and I can say that because I own the building and rent it to myself. We have a writer's floor. It's very much modeled after the way the old Hollywood studios, you hear the classic stories about, MGM and Warner Brothers, and there'd be the writer's building where Dorothy Parker and F. Scott Fitzgerald, and they'd each have a little office, and they'd run up and down the hall going, will you read this scene? Will you look at this? Tell me what you think of this. And that's basically the way that's sort of, the writer's room is not a room, it's a building.
Dla mnie najważniejsze jest zachowanie pewnego dobrego balansu, równowagi pomiędzy mocną pozycją szefa, co jest ważne dla powodzenia serialu, ponieważ mocna pozycja szefa jest mocną pozycją wobec stacji telewizyjnej, można przeforsować pewne rzeczy, można obronić pewne rzeczy, można uzyskać pewne rzeczy, a jednocześnie zachowaniem kreatywności i uszanowaniem kreatywności członków zespołu, zachowując jednocześnie jednolity charakter całego projektu, prawda? I ten balans nie jest łatwy, ponieważ oczywiście szef z dużym doświadczeniem, takim jak powiedzmy ja mam po 30 latach pracy w zawodzie, ma oczywiście tendencję dominowania zespołu scenarzystów mniej doświadczonych. Natomiast, i to jest oczywiście realne niebezpieczeństwo. Dlatego też ja stosuję taką metodę, że na etapie początkowym tworzenia projektu, którego z reguły jestem pomysłodawcą i inspiratorem, pracujemy w zespole, który sobie dobiorę. Za każdym razem dobieram właściwie inny zespół, ponieważ odchodzę od kolejnych seriali, a one nadal są emitowane, niestety niektóre po kilkanaście lat, więc nie osłabiam tego zespołu, tylko zostawiam scenarzystów i dobieram sobie nowych do nowego projektu. Na początkowym etapie pracujemy po wiele godzin, kilka razy w tygodniu razem, omawiając główne wątki, postacie, szukając, jak to mówimy, jest polskie przysłowie, szukanie dziury w całym, czyli ja na przykład występuję często w roli adwokata diabła, podważając pomysły kolegów, oni podważają moje pomysły. Burza mózgów trwająca wiele miesięcy.
In our particular case, I work with a woman named Amy Lippman. We don't actually divide up the show in any particular way. We don't have particular tasks that we do and the other one doesn't. We try not to be in the same place at the same time because there's too much to do on a show. No showrunner can do everything. You have to delegate almost all of the jobs at some point or another. But there are some places in which we try to be together, and one of those places is in the writer's room. We tend to sit together with our writers as much as possible. I don't do it exactly the way Tom does, although I think a lot of the lessons that we learned have led us to the same conclusions. For one thing, the shows that Amy and I tend to do are shows about relationships, and so the group of writers we sit together with in a room who talk about their lives actually provides a lot of the fodder for the show. So Amy and I will meet beforehand for a week or two before a given series or a given season and discuss the various arcs we want, the longer arcs. But it's not until we get the writers together in a room that we begin to figure out the details of those things. We have to steal from people in order to fill up all the episodes that we're doing. So we tend to like to have everyone together in the room, and we sit with them almost every day of the week for some period of time. By the way, one thing that you should know is that it's not necessarily true that the showrunner is always in the writer's room. There's usually somebody, particularly on a network show that has 22 episodes, who's right below the showrunner, often a co-executive producer in the language of American television, or a supervising producer, who will run the room when the showrunner is away because there's so many other jobs to do. But by and large, we're all sitting together and breaking stories together. The person who writes the given episode knows beforehand that he or she is going to do that, and they often take the lead in that. And the room becomes a kind of democratic place where the best idea wins. I mean, one thing about having a partner is I know there's no such thing as being a god on my own television show any more than I am in my own marriage. Because I am married and a partner with, I have 2 Jewish wives. So I'm doing the best I can every single day. But it means that necessarily the whole process is pretty democratic, that the conversation, there's somebody that needs to make a final decision, but by and large, we all decide what the best idea is, and that best idea wins. And then, and I think that Tom is exactly right about this, it's always something that we've strived for, is that every episode should have the voice of the individual writer.
That's part of the value of having that many minds, that you will work through some banal ideas or the first ideas and get to more interesting things often with that many people, whereas you wouldn't perhaps easily by yourself. Yeah, I think the democratic aspect of it is great in that way.
I think the ultimate goal when you're bringing young people into, or new writers into television, is to mentor them as best you can, show them all the pieces, and then you know, start to say, okay, now you take this one, see what happens.
You bring in young writers on shows. That's something that we really like to do, and I think probably almost every showrunner does. You talk about it very specifically. And those writers have some learning curve. Unfortunately, although we tend to give notes, Amy and I would give notes on a script, bring writers in and do that a number of times on a given script, often as often as we could. At some point, the obligations of production mean that that script needs to be finished and turned over to a director and to everyone else who needs to work on it, which means that almost inevitably there's some rewriting that goes on with some of the younger writers. It has been our policy, exclusively with our senior writers, never to rewrite. We do not rewrite them. We give them notes. Sometimes they say to us, please, just rewrite the thing. I don't want to hear anymore what you have to say. Just tell me what you want. But we try not to do that. I think it's important for, look, I know that I came into this wanting to have some ownership over my work product. We run shows because that gives us the maximum ownership we can have, in a sense. But every writer who works for you feels the same way. So we have tended in the past not to rewrite our senior writers, and that works out perfectly well.